What's going on, everyone? Happy Thursday to everyone. Hopefully, everyone is doing well and the weather is cooperating to the way you want it to in your area. It is time now for the Thursday edition of the Climate Update for Thursday, January 25th, 2024. If you're new to my channel, this is where we do the daily climate update on weather stories around the world, weather records, and the United States weather forecast for the next several days and at this point into next week. So if this is something that interests you, and you like the content, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel down below. Starting off today, we have to talk about an earthquake. Yes, let's talk about it. In California, San Bernardino, there was a magnitude 4.2 magnitude earthquake that struck last night at about 7:43 p.m. It was 1.87 miles away from inland Empire City, and it had a depth almost near 10 miles. It didn't cause much or any in the way of damage, but it was enough that, it startled people. Like, oh, hello. Yes, you have to remember, there are faults underneath California that can, from time to time, erupt and lead to earthquakes. All right, taking a look at this now. This is up in Juneau, Alaska. This is from the National Weather Service in Juneau, Alaska. They were sent a video, and they also provided some statistics. So apparently, at the airport in Juneau, let's just read this. To add to your fun fact, January 2024 snowfall at the airport is sitting at 69.2 inches of snow. This is tied for the second snowiest January on record for the airport, with still 8 days left. And mind you, keyword 8 days. They could have yet another storm. That record could be broken to the all-time snowiest. We're going to take a look at that storm and a lot of storms in just a few minutes. And it does say 91% of their snow came from two recent storms. And they did have one storm that dropped 30 inches of snow. I mean, look at this drone footage. You can see here. There is a ton. Look at this. A ton of snow. These people are literally snowed in. That person can open up their door, but you get the idea. All right, switching from snow to tropics. We have to talk about the National Hurricane Center. Read this tweet here. The hurricane cone is changing this upcoming hurricane season. Instead of a track forecast, you know how they just show the track? Well, it's not going to do that anymore. The track will still be there, but there's going to be some other stuff added. The forecast will now include hazards, what you can expect, where you live. This change was unveiled just recently, so it's something that's going to go in effect this hurricane season. Of course, we will have more on this as we get closer to hurricane season. Still several months away. We're still in the middle of winter, and boy, do we have some winter weather to talk about today. Look at this. It's wintertime, so you know what that means. It can get active out on the west coast. And take a look at this satellite imagery from CIRA in the northern Pacific Ocean. Look at this large storm. You can see here's the parent low up here, but look what's south of it. You do have this atmospheric river that is setting up, and that is going to become problematic for the west coast, western Canada, and even, once again, Alaska. We'll take a look at that on the models in just a little bit. Taking a look at the national satellite loop here, you can see here that there is still this ongoing cloudiness. The vast majority of the country is just stuck in the clouds right now. Nearly about 75% of the United States is in some form of cloud cover. And if you're further up north, like the I-70 corridor or the I-80 corridor, you're in the fog. There's a warm front here, and you can see it here pretty clearly around the Carolinas. That is going to get up to just about the Mason-Dixon line, maybe a little bit north of that. And just south of there, tomorrow, you're going to see temperatures in the 70s. Yes, a stark change from that huge cold snap that was coming into play late last week. Yep, 70s. And that is going to stop somewhere right around Philadelphia. It could be a case where in Philadelphia, there's two airports. There's Philadelphia International and then there's Northeast Airport. Philly International, you could get to upper 60s. Why? Well, up in the northeast section of the city, you may only be in the upper 50s or low 60s. That's what's going to happen with this warm front. New York City, you probably will not get warm sector tomorrow. In fact, you might only be in the upper 30s or low 40s, which would be a 30-degree difference from what's going to happen in Washington, D.C. I am expecting on Friday, Washington, D.C. will get over 70 degrees. But with this will come some shower activity tonight, maybe even an embedded elevated thunderstorm. Not talking about severe thunderstorms, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's a rumble of thunder with this warm front tonight. We're also watching this moisture, which is gathering over the Gulf of Mexico. You can see here on the satellite, it's going over Louisiana. We'll take a look at the radar picture, and let's zoom this out to the national view. You can see there's still some heavy rain here. Portions of Texas and northwest Louisiana got anywhere from 5 to 10 inches of rain over the past several days. So while you were in a drought, guess what? You just got a ton of rain. You're not going to see that reflected on today's drought update. You probably will notice a difference on next week's drought update. All right, moving on now, taking a look at the National Hazards Map. Again, from the Great Lakes into Pennsylvania, into portions of southern New York. Yes, look at all this fog. It just continues. I think today is going to be the last day of it, but there could be some more foggy weather, again, maybe on Saturday, as our next system is going to gather around Texas. And of course, as you know, eventually, as time goes on, there's going to be more systems in the Pacific Northwest as well. Flood watch is still up for portions of Alabama, portions of Georgia, Tennessee, even southern North Carolina, southeast Ohio, and even portions of West Virginia, where there is still a risk of flooding. Taking a look at the Weather Prediction Center, you can see here, marginal risk in West Virginia, slight risk from the Gulf Coast states on up into portions of Tennessee and western North Carolina. And then when we go to the day 2 outlook, you can see it continues for Louisiana. Then a marginal risk is introduced for portions of Texas on up to Oklahoma. This is for excessive rainfall. And on day 3, just a small slight risk from northern Georgia, South Carolina, western North Carolina, portions of Tennessee, and extreme northeast portions of Alabama. All right, moving on now. Taking a look at the days 1 through 7 precipitation total, and you can see two things that really stick out. One, we're still expecting high amounts of precipitation from the Gulf Coast on up into the mid-Atlantic. And two, take a look at the Pacific Northwest. Yes, it is going to get very active again in the Pacific Northwest. You saw that system that is out there in the Pacific. That one system will come through, but the trailing front that's to the south of it may be the train tracks for more systems to develop. So places like Seattle or Portland, Oregon, and even Northern California, start preparing now. I really think you're going to see some heavy rainfall next week. You're going to see winds with this. There's potential maybe for some mudslide activity in Northern California. Yeah, it's not looking good. Winds are going to be really high. It's going to be an active period. You need to start preparing yourself now. Taking a look at the severe weather aspect, there was a slight risk earlier in the south, and there was a severe thunderstorm watch. There still is. That's going to be expiring pretty soon. Portions of Louisiana and portions of southern Mississippi, central and southern Mississippi, did see some severe weather reports today. Wind reports. There's 15 of them so far today. And as we go on into tomorrow, not really expecting much in the way of severe weather. There could be some severe weather in Alabama and portions of Georgia on Saturday, and the western portion of the Florida Panhandle. We'll have to keep an eye on that. There could even be a small tornado threat with that. Not terribly concerned at this point, but it's something we will have to continue to watch, as this is part of that system that's going to move through the southern states and eventually develop into some sort of a coastal storm off of the mid-Atlantic. Taking a look at the latest NAM model, this just came in. It's the 18Z NAM model. And the first thing you will see here is look over the Carolinas. There's that warm front that I was talking about. You can see that lifts north, and you can see how there's a few yellow echoes with this. And if I switch models real quickly, I can switch to the latest HER model, and I want to show you this as well. Notice how there's a few yellows and even some reds. As we zoom into the northeast region, take a look at that. You can see, like I said, there could be some isolated thunder in these regions with this warm front as it lifts through, because it's a pretty powerful warm front. The problem is, and once this shifts through, it's not going to completely clear anywhere from the I-195 in Jersey, back across I-276 in Pennsylvania. Anywhere north of there, I think you're going to be stuck in the clouds tomorrow, and you're not really going to see temperatures warm up. Take a look at this here as we take a look at the temperatures, because this I do want to point out. Here's that potential warming for tomorrow. Look at D.C. Look at places like Richmond, Virginia, Greensboro, North Carolina. Yes, upper 60s to low 70s are possible for you as we head into tomorrow. All right, going back to the NAM model, we want to take a look at the next system, because we're starting to get our first indications of what the NAM's going to show. And here we are for Friday night and Saturday. You can see a low starts to develop in the south out of Louisiana. This will come north. but it will only get so far north. The question is, how far north will it get? Will this high pressure that you see further up north here in Canada, will it be enough to keep it more south? Or will the storm come a bit more north? And you can see here, the NAM is suggesting there will be a transfer somewhere over to Carolinas and then over to Delmarva. But what you are seeing here as we get into Saturday night and into Sunday is primarily rain for the I-95 corridor. If you're going to be talking about any snow, it's going to be inland, and it's going to be after the transfer starts to occur. So you can see here, Sunday morning, the transfer is occurring. Take a look at northern Pennsylvania into upstate New York. You can see that is snow. Look at Boston. You even see some snow as well. The question remains is how much of that cold air is going to collapse? How strong is this low going to get? And this is not only just a wintry threat if this low gets stronger. You also have to start concerning yourselves about the potential coastal impacts of beach erosion. I know in New Jersey they have been having problems with the dunes and coastal erosion, especially down in Wildwood, New Jersey. So that's something that we have to pay attention to because you are very vulnerable at this time. And you can see the NAM tries to develop a double barrel low where a secondary low forms the coast, one low moves east. Not really buying that at this point, but something else that we have to take a look at is what's going on in the Pacific Northwest. There comes the first piece of energy, Saturday night into Sunday. That's just one of many storms that's going to impact you. Let's take a look at the GFS perspective now of everything, including this potential coastal storm in the east. So you can see the GFS develops it. The primary low does get over southwest Pennsylvania before the secondary low develops a bit more north, right off of about the coast of Atlantic City. But you can see inland, there is decent steady to even moderate snows, and it is something we have to watch. Boston, keep an eye on this for you as well. You're going to be right around the mixing line, but there are some indications that that mixing line will collapse, and you will see some snow. Now, the GFS sometimes often underdoes precipitation with coastal storms, and this may even be too far southeast. The bias of the models this season has been for storms to end up a little bit more northwest, and that is typically a trend that we see with these Miller B type systems. This is a Miller B, meaning it's going to go from a primary low over to a secondary low, as you can see here off the coast of New England. So it's something we'll have to watch. The time frame right now, again, would be from Saturday night, where it transfers off the coast, into pretty much all day Sunday for the Northeast. Interior places, there's potential you could see anywhere from 5 to 8 inches of snow, maybe even more if this thing really gets its act going together. I-95 corridor, we'll say from about Providence, Rhode Island on southward, maybe you would end as snow at this point. It would really have to bomb out and deepen a lot more. The wild card remains to be Boston area on northward. Do you get enough of this storm to organize where maybe you get some significant snow? Interior, like the Berkshires, yes, you definitely could be on the cards for significant snow. Maybe somewhere like Albany, New York, in the Catskills, yes, 5 to 8 inches of snow. It's not out of the question for you. All right, back to the West Coast now. What we want to do now is we want to switch this to the North Atlantic or the North American view, because we want to take a look at the activity ongoing in the Pacific. And take a look at this. You can see it is really active out there in the Pacific Northwest, and you can see multiple storm systems as we head into next week. Look at this one, 955 millibars south of Alaska in the Gulf of Alaska. That's really impressive, and that's one storm that we are really concerned about for next Tuesday, because look at this. It just comes crashing into the West Coast. Plenty of moisture. I mean, you could see localized 3 to 6 inch rainfall amounts with a storm like that, and look what happens behind it. Yet another storm system is trying to get its act going, and yes, this one would go down to Southern California once again. So it's something we're watching into next week. Be mindful. Heavy rainfall, wind, power outages, maybe even a mudslide threat. It is all on the table for you in the West Coast. Plus, I should mention, you're going to see high wave activity with this storm system as well. So that is 2 storm systems that are going to impact the United States over the next several days into next week. There's also something else that we want to take a look at, which is a wild card right now. So let's go back to the United States view real quickly, and I want to show you something on the 12Z European today. I found this to be rather interesting. So here's what the 12Z Euro does for that storm system next week. Remember, it was one of the first models to sniff out this could be a stronger coastal storm. Look what happens behind it. You see this piece of energy right here over the Great Lakes, and I'll go to 500 millibar view so you can see it better. It dives southeast, and look at that. Another piece of a polar vortex starts to come into New England. Should that happen, that warm-up that was expected by the Climate Prediction Center in the Northeast would be canceled out. It would end up being colder than expected. Mind you, this is the European showing it. Usually a good model, but it is the model that is the most extreme with it. The GFS is not really showing this at all. Canadian shows something in between, and I think we would take a blend of the GFS and Euro, and you would get the Canadian because the Euro just looks a little bit too extreme. I mean, look at this. That's a rather impressive polar vortex, and it doesn't just move out. It actually sits there right on through the end of the European run. And when I say cold weather, I mean really cold weather. Look at this. When we take a look at the shaded temperatures, you can see here, lows at nighttime, watch. They will actually get down into the single digits, if not below zero in New England. So this is pretty crazy what the European's showing. And I would suspect on tonight's 0Z run, it's going to show something completely different. And we'll have to see if the EPS, which is the Ensemble Prediction System, even agrees with this. All right, moving on. Let's take a look at today's drought update. You can see it's not showing any improvement in the mid-south just yet, but mind you, this data comes from a couple days ago. They just had the heavy rain over the last couple days. I suspect next week we're going to see this get improved quite a bit. You can see nothing to be concerned about on the East Coast. Some of the northern plains still a little bit dry. Four Corners region, you're still a little dry. I think you're going to see some improvement going into February with this parade of storm systems coming to the West Coast. The ones that end up more south are going to provide some relief for you. Not enough to totally wash away your drought, but it'll be beneficial relief, and there is no drought concerns in Florida at this time, aside from around Tampa Bay, and I'm not even terribly concerned about that. I think you could see some wetter precipitation ahead. All right, taking a look at the Climate Prediction Center. 6 to 10 day temperature outlook is showing above average temperatures. However, you do see this maximum that is over the Midwest. Again, take a look at the Northeast. Should the European be right, we would see this end up not occurring. And slightly below average temperatures down in Florida, below average in Alaska, near normal on the West Coast, 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, very wet on the West Coast. After that coastal storm this weekend in the Northeast, you're going to get into a quiet period for quite some time, maybe enough to last into the middle of next week. 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, below average in the West, above normal in the east, but again, a lot of that depends on what happens with that piece of the polar vortex that the European is showing for the northeast states. All right, taking a look now at what's going on with the 8 to 14 day precipitation, here's what I was talking about. Above average precipitation in the Four Corners region. And look where that is. New Mexico, Arizona, same areas that are currently in drought situations. So this is actually some really beneficial good news for you. Slightly below average in the Pacific Northwest. Not sure if I agree with that. We'll have to see what happens with this atmospheric river. And slightly below average still in the Northeast. And I'm agreeing with that for now, but we'll see what happens. Things could change. This would potentially be the most quiet period in the Northeast in quite some time. Alrighty, folks, that does it for today's climate update. We will have another climate update again tomorrow. If you want to follow me when I'm not doing videos, when there isn't a video and you want to see what I'm saying on Twitter, follow me at Climate Data Report. That's Climate Data, capital RPT. There'll be a link to that down below. Follow me there, and if you enjoy this type of content or you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel down below for more of these videos. If you have anything you would like to say, maybe you want to share a comment, leave a comment down below. I will see you all again next time. Until I see you again next time, stay weather aware and be prepared for the storms that I talked about today. Thanks for watching. Have a great afternoon.